if he's released, and I think he's a different conversation because he would be in the mix to be a starter, potentially a captain, whereas Bello would be that conversation that you just had. Is he going to play? And if he goes, are they going to let him go just to ride the bench? That's the conversation. That's where it gets tricky. I think Robinson's in a different one. He would be starting.
I got an update, John. Apparently his computer's updating. So
that'll take like 5 hours.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes. Because if he does go, then you're looking at, man, we're going to be cycling potentially Andrew Gutman and Mikey Ambrose to see, who's going to get minutes in that situation. Because otherwise, I mean, I think we saw enough last year. And if you didn't see enough last year, I don't know how to help you at that point. That, this is the George Bello show on the left side. Forever and ever, amen, until they sell him.
Yeah, I mean, you went and got Mikey Ambrose for a reason. If you get Gutman, great. If you don't, then you've got Ambrose for cover. You need the cover. You've also, and this is something I think we'll see more and more with this team in 2021 than maybe people are used to. You'll see Franco Escobar on the left side from time to time. You'll see Anton Walks on the left side from time to time. You might see a 3-back setup with a wing-back over there at times, 3 center backs. You'll see an inverted left back. You'll see different things where it's not going to be the old school, okay, this guy plays left back and that's all he plays and that's all he's going to do, and then this guy will come in for him because he's a left back and that's all he does. It's going to be far more fluid, so you'll see a little more creativity with that sort of thing. Be curious to see how that works out. I think the thing about Bello that helps Atlanta is you don't have a U20 World Cup. He definitely would have been part of that. The Olympics are a question. So you've got cover on that side. I think this roster right now, from a general depth perspective, is pretty good. The 6 is still the question that we've all had. It sounds like they've been chasing defensive midfielders. I don't think they'll give up chasing defensive midfielders. We don't know when the season is exactly going to start. We'll get into that here in just a second. But outside of that position for a starter, you've got cover everywhere you need it at the moment. You're pretty well too deep across the board in the kinds of roles that you're looking for in the way that Gabriel Heinze is going to play. So I think you're in a good spot outside of the 6. And Ambrose was a really good addition because he gets the system. He gets the idea of the way this team wants to play because he's played in it here before. He understands the club. You know what he can give you. Perfect kind of addition. If Gutman's able to play, then that's a bonus if you can get him. But if you can flip his rights, then that's also a bonus.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to any of it. And we'll see what happens with Gutman's rights, because, I mean, it could be, depending on what he gives you, and if this is one of those where you found a guy who, I think it's kind of hard to look at the Cincinnati gig and, definitively say things based off what happened in Cincinnati, because it was such a mess. It could be one of those, you brought him in to see what he can do in a situation that isn't playing for a year and a half, or a year that was a hot mess, and then Jaap Stam, who, sat back and refused to play with the ball, even when he had man advantages. So maybe this is a guy you throw out there and see, okay, show us what you have in this situation. And maybe you end up with a steal on your hands. Maybe it's the kind of guy that you end up down the road selling his rights for, and you end up making more money. You make more profit selling his rights than you did for what it cost you to buy that spot to get into the allocation.
Yeah, I think you can get there. John magically appears. Good job, John. Okay.
What?
That about sums it up.
Yeah. For the last 20 minutes. 2-0, 2-0, 20, 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
Been fighting. You want go ahead and hit the same sounder that you hit yesterday. Just go ahead.
I've got a whole bunch I can use.
Go for it. They all apply.
You did that, right? Did a little bit of this?
Oh, a lot of that.
A lot of that?
A lot of that.
Oh, good times.
Oh, to the point to where I was having a Scanners moment.
That's not good.
No, it decided that it wanted to update and not have me access, and then that was after a cold boot where it decided that, no, you didn't give me the chance to give all the updates initially. And so, by the way, we're just going to go ahead and keep updating. And I was screaming and ready to punch an inanimate object.
Are there things that make you angry?
Yes! Yes, Fred! Updating computers when they don't tell you that they're going to update.
Why does your computer do this when
most
of them don't?
No, especially at 8:58 every morning. Every single time this happens, it's at like 8:58 when I'm trying to access the show and join the call.
It was like that.
Did that about 4 times too.
Yeah. You might want to get out of Windows XP.
I've got Chrome.
That's not the operating
Get him on
system.
Vista.
Do you
Let's see what
understand
happens
that, John? Do you understand that Chrome's not the operating system?
No.
That's what I thought. That's part of the problem. Yeah, you got to really work on this because this is not good. You've been red carded like 57 times in the Twitch pitch.
I mean, that is beautiful, though. I mean, it's one of my favorite things in life when somebody comes off the bench out of nowhere and picks up a red card in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's always beautiful.
It's good. It was Frank Fabra-esque from last night. I was going to
say it was very Fabra-esque after last night. Just go ahead and stomp on a dude, yeah.
Pretty much. Your computer stomped on you. That's how it went today.
Oh, my God.
Well, like Juan in the playoffs. He was so damn determined to get a red card.
Yes!
That's about it. Yes. We'll one day figure out your computer because it shouldn't be this hard. But when you thought Chrome was your operating system, I think I see the problem, and there's a lot of them. Before you go, Jarrett, I would like to get your take on our next topic, MLS and MLS Players Association. So this has come to a head over the last couple days. Well, I don't even know if it's come to a head, to be honest. There's a lot of sniping back and forth. The league gave a media availability that I don't know how far ahead of time they actually issued it because I didn't see it, so I don't know, and spoke 2 days ago. The Players Association after that came out and said, okay, well, we're going to speak. And they did yesterday, and Bob Foose had a whole lot to say. Said that the players are very frustrated. They're certainly angry. I think it would be impossible to overstate the damage to the relationship that the league did with the way they conducted things last summer. It was substantial and will be very long-lasting. Because of that, it's unfortunate, but I don't think players were surprised when there was yet another attempt to renege and renegotiate from the league. There's a back and forth that makes absolutely zero sense to us on the outside because we don't have the contract. We don't have the CBA in front of us. As to what this force majeure actually does about this 30-day window, the league said they have a deadline of 30 days to renegotiate. Bob Foose said, we're not rushing just because somehow suddenly the league has decided that there's this magical deadline that no one's ever mentioned before. So this is a big deal, and these are big decisions and important. Mark Abbott, the deputy commissioner, responded to Bob Foose's comments yesterday and said, the timing of the negotiating period was specifically agreed to by the league and the players, and we have made a good faith, thoughtful, and simple proposal to facilitate reaching agreement promptly and before the end of the 30-day negotiating period. First question, is it a 30-day negotiating period or not? Because they don't seem to even agree on that. We know the basic terms here. The league wants to extend the CBA by 2 years. They agree not to ask for a pay cut, not to cut salaries in the short term. They said that was because the players said they couldn't handle a pay cut. They didn't want a pay cut, so they're not putting a pay cut on the table, but they're trying to save money. Bob Foose questioned how much money they've lost, questioned the $1 billion of losses, which we can play math, and I don't know where it exactly falls, but it's not that far off of that ballpark. They've lost a lot of money. I mean, there's no way to argue that they haven't. My biggest thing here, and I want to hear from both of you guys, and I want to hear from all of you out there, is I'm very, very ticked off that both sides are acting the way they are. because there's no disputing we're in the midst of a global pandemic. There's no disputing it has been disruptive to revenues and long-term viability of businesses across all spectrums. There's no disputing any of that. And both sides need to get on the same page. And if the league screwed up their relationship last summer, they need to fix that. If the players don't want to sit down at the table and talk, and they haven't even started even looking at this proposal that the league sent, that was according to Foose yesterday, they need to get to the table and talk. Because nobody's going to benefit from a work stoppage. Nobody's going to benefit from a lockout. Nobody's going to benefit from the CBA being torn up. Nobody's going to benefit from a strike. The only people that are really, really going to get hurt are the people who work in the teams that have no say in this, and the fans. Because they're going to come to an agreement. The league's not going to go away over this because there's too much to lose. The players are going to have jobs somewhere in this, and they're going to get paid something. We don't know what. We don't know how much. We don't know how all that's going to work. But the people who are going to get hurt are the people who have no say in it. So they need to get to the table. They are not going to get an agreement done by sniping back and forth in the media. They are not going to get an agreement done with these kinds of things being said publicly on both sides. They are not winning anybody over right now, neither side, and it needs to stop because this is what everything has turned into in 2020 and beyond and before and all of it. Grow up. Get to the table and act like adults because there's a lot of people suffering right now. There's a lot of people dealing with things right now and not getting down to the table and negotiating and calling each other names and starting this nonsense in the media back and forth and calling dueling media availabilities because they can't actually pick up the phone or get on a Zoom call is unprofessional, it's childish, and it needs to stop. Grow up. Both of you, and act like adults and lead American soccer like you need to, because it's not even just MLS that is relying on you guys acting like adults. It's everybody. Because MLS and all of this has raised the level of American soccer. A lot of people are looking to you to lead the way. Act like leaders. Both of you. Players Association and league. Stop acting like this. You're not going to get an agreement done by scheduling dueling media availabilities where then all we're going to get is little quips and little quotes and just get people angry and mad on both sides at one another. That doesn't get an agreement done. Act like adults, please.
Jarrett, go for it.
I mean... without seeing all this, and prefacing is, I'm not a lawyer. I turned down taking the LSATs when a professor told me to. I didn't want anything to do with that. But prefacing all that, man, it's so hard when everything pops into the media about what is and isn't real, you know? I think for me, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, I don't know what is and isn't real on either side from either party, which is, one of the reasons they use the media the way they do. And they're not the only ones. Every league does this. Oh, it's a tough relationship? Okay. You ever seen it? Please send a representation from MLB, NBA, and NFL to go talk to the players union and talk about what a bad relationship looks like between a league and a players union, because my God, it can get a lot worse. And, man, if this is the first time y'all are having tough negotiations between y'all, somebody please just set them down in a room. My God, it can get worse, y'all. I get this might be the first time y'all have hit rocky waters together as a couple, league and players union. You're going to have to get over yourselves at some point and get something done. As far as it being, reneging on an agreement, I mean, if the force majeure clause is written into the modified CBA, then that's not what it is to me. It's, and I may be wrong, but it's similar in my mind to when you put an opt-out in a contract. Whereas you can renegotiate things. Like if they had just said, hey, we're not going to honor the CBA and we're going to have a 30-day negotiating period, that's a different animal. But they put the renege in here with the idea of using it. I still want to know what the players gained from putting that in there, because that should not have been something that was put in there lightly. That should have been something that was put in with the idea of, oh, the owners want this, we're going to need concessions coming our way. John?
Yeah. I look at it yesterday in looking at how the Players Association was, you could tell the talking points. You could tell what their path was going to be and how they're going to address things going forward. We've had some folks in the timeline this morning already sit there and lean toward one side or the other. Some of the quotes that were put out yesterday by the Players Association about the owners, about the finances, they're disappointing. But you understand that this is, all right, so this is your beachhead. This is what you're going to focus on. And this is what your tack is going to be. Jason, to your point, when Major League Soccer kind of pops up and does a pop-up presser, for lack of a better phrase, when the Players Association comes up and does a pop-up presser, for lack of a better phrase, when all they're doing right now is sniping and counter-sniping, when you're at a key point in your league where you've been one of those leagues that has been at the forefront of getting things back together in a pandemic. You had MLS's back. It was well received across the board. The players did take the 5% cut. I understand the point of view of Major League Soccer to sit there and say, okay, here's what we would like to do with this proposal. But all you're doing is you're talking into the ether. You're talking at us. You're talking at fans. You're trying to win perspective. You're trying to sit there and curry favor from one side or the other if you're Major League Soccer or if you're the Players Association. All I've seen is one side talking into the air, the other side talking into the air. What you need to do so you don't strangle all of this growth that you have had and gotten to this point as one of the major sports in this country and in this hemisphere, sit down at the table. Stop talking into the air, either side, sit there and complaining about what's wrong with one side or the other. Sit down, get it squared away, because this is a key moment in your sport in this country. And a lot of folks are affected by this, not just the players, not just the owners. It's everyone who shows up on a daily basis. It's a yellow jacket. It's someone who works concessions. It's someone who works inside a team in and of itself. There are a lot of different effects that happen here. And when you have both sides, labor and management, sitting there and just talking into the air, nothing's getting done. And the only people that are really, truly affected by this are the ones that are interacting with it on a daily basis. Sit down at a table, close the door, get it squared away. Jared, go ahead.
I don't blame the players a bit in the sense that they're nervous about extending a CBA if they expect growth to continue after, say, 2022. I don't blame them for that, because as the idea is as revenue continues to rise, you want a bigger chunk of that pie. I don't blame you a bit. That's one of the things you should be going for with this. But if you're not going to if you're trying to not take any cuts right now, when clubs all over the world, bigger clubs are taking, like worldwide brands are taking cuts.
Yeah.
If you're not going to take cuts now, they're going to ask you to take cuts later, because they're going to ask you to take cuts at some point beyond that 5% from last year. And frankly, also, if you start the league in May, I don't know how you plan to end the season in December with a full schedule of games, with compression, with an Olympics, with a Euro, with a Copa America. I don't know how you plan to like squeeze an entire season in on that. And yeah, they're going to be hesitant to pay you 100% salary when you might not get 100% games in there if you don't start till May. All this posturing about if we don't start in March. I don't know what that looks like, man. I'd love to know, because I'd love for them to start in March. Hell, I'd love for them to start earlier. We've talked in the past. We'd love for them to start earlier in the season. If for no other reason, it kind of gives you a little bit of a leg up going into CONCACAF Champions League, which you're starting to take more seriously, and it lets you spread out the schedule more. Maybe you don't end up running the risk of having an MLS Cup in Minnesota in December, and we get a repeat of that Cup in Toronto from a couple years ago, where it was like, basically Call of the Wild. They're going to ask you to. I mean, they're going to ask you to take cuts somewhere. It's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Where do you
want
to take them?
Yeah. Do you want your cuts now, or do you want them at the end of the deal and try to figure something out? And who's to say that you can't put something into the contract the future deal and sit there and say, okay, if revenues hit certain markers, then we can talk about it again. But Jared, also to your point, when Mr. Foose talked yesterday about, I don't see, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't see an issue with starting later in the year. You mentioned it from a scheduling standpoint. I'll take it from the standpoint of players and player injuries and player health. If you push your schedule down the road, if you start in May, let's say, then you get into schedule compression, then you get into all of these different aspects of player health and player safety, that you're not benefiting your players by squeezing a schedule into a space with all of these other events that are going on. You're not benefiting your players' well-being, and you're not benefiting their careers in the longer term if you're sitting there and you're squeezing a schedule together where you're playing midweek weekend, midweek weekend, midweek weekend. We've seen what it's been in the Premier League to get everything squeezed together where you're having all of this compression and you're seeing all of these injuries. Do you want that same kind of thing affecting your member base, if you're the Players Association, to do something like this? You're going to have to take your losses sooner or later. You have to determine when you want that to be. The initial talk from Major League Soccer seemed to be a fairly logical thought about their first proposal. But the bottom line is, in all of this, is that both sides need to sit down and stop talking into the air, because there's a lot in play here, not just in 2021, but all the way through. We can say 2025, 2026, however you want to phrase it. There's a lot in play here that affects more than just players and management. It's everyone that's associated with what we're seeing on a daily basis with these clubs. And they're the ones that don't have a say in any of this. So for their sake, both of these sides need to get to the table.
It's very, very frustrating to see some of the statements being made in bad faith. That's where I get furious with it. And that's why you don't need to be doing this in public, because it erodes confidence in the people talking. The idea about, yeah, you can start the season in May, no problem. No, you can't. Because of all the things you guys have said, you would have to compress.
You can. Schedule. You just won't play a full season.
And then you'll lose more money.
The players will not allow you to. The players will not play a full season because of the schedule compression. They will raise a storm from hell. But
then you'll lose more money
about safety.
Then you will lose more money, because we've seen it in every other league in the world. That's a fact. I mean, it's just if you start in May, you will not play 34 games. You will owe broadcasters money. You will owe sponsors money, because you have deals for 34 games of exposure. Yes, you will have people in the building, maybe more. I don't think in May you're going to all of a sudden have full capacity everywhere in the league. But you can't make it work, because then you're probably going to have to play through the Gold Cup and Copa America and Euros in June, which is not ideal. But that's the only way you're going to be able to get stuff done. You're already going to play through the Olympics, I would assume. You're going to have to try to push MLS Cup back to December, and then, oh yeah, your season next year. And this is the other reason why you're trying to get it started. You're trying to get 2 seasons in before the World Cup in 2022, which is going to be in late November is when it starts. Players are going to leave you at the beginning of November, probably. You're going to have your MLS Cup as early in November as possible in 2022. You can't back it up. There's a World Cup. There's nothing you can do about it. So you've got to get 2 seasons in between now and then. If you push it back, you can't get 2 full seasons in, and you lose more money. Or you compress the schedule so much, and then you have injuries. It's one or the other, and neither one is good. Look, the reality is this. We can argue publicly between the two sides about, well, we've lost $1 billion. Well, we don't think you lost $1 billion. We don't believe you, and blah, blah, blah. Inter's trying to sell shares, and this is Inter Milan. I don't want to confuse anybody about Inter Miami. Guys, don't file a cease and desist. We're just talking about it. Inter in Milan is going to have to sell shares. Why? They need money. They need revenue of about 200 million euro. Okay, they got to sell some shares. Leicester is on their 8th loan. 8th. More than 7. To keep paying people. 8. They're not doing that for fun. They're giving up their broadcast revenue next year to get this loan. That's the only way they can get it. Darby County can't pay their wages. Cannot pay them right now. You got Wayne Rooney trying to tell the players, we're going to get you paid. We're going to get you paid one way or another. Wayne Rooney was playing just a few weeks ago. And now he's having to stand up in front of them and say, look, we're sorry, guys, that you only got half of your money that was due at the end of December. We're going to get you sorted out by the end of January. How often does that actually happen?
It's going to be a catastrophe with relegation this year. Like it's and but you look at a club like Leicester.
But hold on, I'm not even done.
Leicester doesn't get.
I'm not even done. There's so many more clubs like this, and that's the situation. Southampton, £76.1 million loss in their latest financial results. Go to the whole of major European football. Study done by KPMG. 20 of Europe's biggest clubs lost more than $1 billion in revenue over the past year. 10% has been knocked off players' average values. The transfer activity in Europe's biggest leagues over the summer, the 5 biggest leagues, transfer activity down 43%. This is real. And you can argue about how much people are losing right now, but I would be willing to bet that the league is losing more than 5%. And stop arguing about how much and work together. If you want to be partners, work together to get this done. Because it's a bad look. And no, this is not... people are going to... And this is why I hate this. Because people are going to take something and twist it. Because we're already seeing that in the media. We're already seeing people jumping on. We're already seeing the influencers do their things. That's what people knew would happen here. That's why they're arguing it out the way they are. And it's stupid. No, the league's not in a different position than anybody else. Remember Barcelona going back and forth about how many pay cuts they were going to have? Nobody thinks horribly of Barcelona because their players were arguing back and forth about pay cuts. Or the team was saying, yeah, we got to defer some money because we can't pay you right now. That's the reality. They need to get it done because if they don't, it's going to hurt the league and it's going to hurt the future of the league. It's not about the perception overall because nobody really is going to care about this down the road. They are going to care if the season doesn't start till May. They are going to care if there's a lockout. They are going to care if there's a strike. Those are the things that are going to be the issue. The sniping back and forth right now just makes it harder to get this done. And there's no good reason for it. Because there's obviously a problem. You're not just trying to renege on a CBA because you want to. There's obviously a problem. There's obviously going to be a revenue decrease from what you would have projected in a normal year for 2021. There already was for 2020. You guys can argue how much all you want. Go ahead, have fun. But get in the room, get on the Zoom call, and do this for real instead of using the media as mouthpieces and getting things twisted in the media and not actually solving the problem. Do your jobs and act like adults, please. Sorry, Jared.
No, that's fine. It is going to, but I mean, we talked about this last year. It's going to be interesting with what happens with clubs that end up dropping down, that lose that Premier League money. If they're already kind of making those, those decisions of, hey, we're not going to get out of this relegation zone. We need to start prepping now and start selling guys and getting ready for the hit that comes with that. With you talk about Leicester taking out the loans. What happens if they don't get a European spot? I think they do. I'm not saying they won't. What happens if they don't get the European money coming in, like Champions League money or even Europa League money? It's going to have knock-on effects. We won't see them we won't see them yet. It's this is the punt. This is the secret. God, I forget the name of the exploding heart technique from Kill Bill.
Oh, the 5-point exploding heart technique.
Yeah, this is they're going to have to take 5 steps before they die, and those 5 steps might not come for a year or two before we see the knock-on effects. That's just the way it is. I want to see how it ends up negotiating out for MLS owners and for the players. I still kind of take a deep sigh every time I see about, the relationship is ruined. Like, y'all, we've seen worse relationships between ownerships and players in this country with negotiations in the past. I promise it's been worse. Ask the NHL players with the lockouts in the past and whatnot. it can be. If you feel like it can't be solved, that's a you decision, because it can be mended over time. Right now, I get it. Right now is a really raw emotional time for a lot of people, and I don't doubt it with some of the players, because especially some of the lower level players who are making $50,000-$60,000 a year, I don't doubt it. They are probably, a little more antsy than guys who are making six figures a year. I don't doubt that at all. But, for the guys who are helping spearhead the Players Association, I promise there have been worse relationships. This one can get fixed. You do have to get through this storm, though. I don't know how you do it, but you're gonna have to do this part. I know it's gonna be tough.
I mean, think about Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball and the lockout, and how
I know people who still hate Tom Glavine. Yeah. I know people who to this day boo Tom Glavine when they see him.
Yep.
Think about the rub-on effects that it's had on other sports. I mean, Major League Baseball had a lockout, then their season was done, and Jared, you mentioned Tom Glavine that's a part of this. The National Hockey League loses a season. You want that? If you want that, keep sniping and counter-sniping instead of sitting at a table and getting something done. All you have to do, as Jared said, look at other sports and what has happened with them in the past. We can go back to, back into the 1790s when the National Football League brought in scabs as a part of this whole thing. I mean, other sports have experienced it. If you want that, keep talking in two separate channels instead of sitting down and getting something done.
Yep. And you don't want to be the NHL in this. You don't want to be MLB. You don't want to be the NBA. You don't want to be the NFL. All of them have had stoppages of some form or fashion. The NHL lost a whole season. The NBA has lost parts of seasons.
NHL's had that multiple times, haven't they?
A whole season? I think they only had that once. But they've had
stoppages. The one whole season, but you've had...
Yeah, they've had stoppages.
Partial stoppages, sorry.
MLB lost a World Series. The NFL has had stoppages and replacement players. I mean, MLS hasn't had that. You don't want to strive to be that team. And it's gotta stop. Because what's happened over the last couple of days has not helped anything. It's probably made it more difficult because now you've got hurt feelings on top of this. I'm sorry, you need to be adults, and you need to get this done, because there are a lot of people out there in the game who are relying on it getting done. And last year, when there were not games in the first half of the year, the players didn't miss a paycheck. Other people did. Players did not miss a paycheck. It's just something that you've got to get done here for the good of the game. And everybody talks about that, but this is an opportunity to show it and work together to do it. I'm with Jared. I mean, if the idea is that the players don't want to give up future years on the CBA, which Bob Foose is 100% correct. Like, you negotiate the length of the CBA, it's one of the prime points that you're going to go back and forth on. The leagues want it to be as long as possible to lock in revenues and lock in expenditures, better way to put it. And the players want it to be as short as possible so they can then renegotiate for a bigger share. You're always going to go back and forth on that, so they don't want to give that up. Understandable. But what the league said wasn't countered yesterday by Bob Foose. And honestly, what Foose said before the end of the season would add to what the league had said previously. Don Garber said that the players made it clear they did not feel like they could handle taking another pay cut. That was the hardest thing for them. That's why it was a minimal cut to begin with, and that's why they proposed it this way. That seems logical from what we know and what Bob Foose has said publicly at the end of last season. Okay, if you're willing to give up some now to save some later, then do that. If you don't want to do either, I don't know if that's going to help any kind of a relationship from the other side. So figure it out. Figure out what you're going to do, because nobody's winning right now. Nobody's benefiting from any kind of stoppage. Nobody's benefiting from the back and forth. Nobody's going to benefit from a crazy 2021 year that needs to be as normal as it can to get back to normal. It's not going to be normal in revenue. It's impossible for that to be the case. But The longer the season, the earlier it starts, the better it will be for all concerned. And if you need to trade off, if the league needs to trade off more revenue sharing situations in the CBA to make it work, then everybody has a vested interest in growing it, do it. Whatever. Sit down and figure it out. You guys are smart, but you're not acting smart right now. You're acting like kids. Don't act like kids. We've already got enough of that in our public discourse. Act like adults, please, and get this done for the good of the game, for the good of everybody involved in it. Por favor. Hey.
They've passed a lot of other sports in this hemisphere when we talk about the Big Four. MLS is right there as a part of that Big Four discussion.
MLS is right there for a lot of reasons. Not even in the Big Four conversation, because you'll have your old timers who won't consider it, but right. From new young fans that MLB is struggling to reach, the NHL is struggling to reach, the NFL is struggling to reach, the NBA is doing a good job of reaching, MLS is doing a good job of reaching. Your future looks good because of that. So Big Four or not, it'll be there eventually. The numbers back it up. So don't do anything to slow that down. Get it done. No. Everybody's suffering right now in terms of business. Nothing is normal. Figure it out and be adults about the situation. Stop this back and forth and stop growing these just issues publicly, because it's not helping. All right. No. We're going to move on because I'd like to keep my voice for the rest of the day. Jarrett, how long are you hanging with us?
Like 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay, then you get to tell us what you think about Chris Armas going to Toronto.
I like it better than the news that just dropped that Urban Meyer's going to Jacksonville. Woohoo! Duval.
No.
Wow.
That's where Fulham is spending their money, by the way.
Oh, man. As far as Armas goes, man, I want to see what he does. I don't think Armas is a bad coach, but I've also only seen him in the Red Bull system. So it's kind of one of those where I want to see him outside of the system to see what he can do. If this works and he goes to Toronto and does really well, every form of communication and social media in which there is a safe space for Red Bulls will be popcorn-worthy entertainment. My God. That would be amazing. I want to see what he can do, though, because I'm not sold that I don't think he was a bad coach, and he's going to have an interesting talent pool to work with in Toronto because there's still talent there. It's also on the old side. We talked about this the night of the Cup. When we talked about Columbus and Seattle being teams that were shading older, Toronto is as well. Now they've got some young guys. You've got an Akinola who looks like a guy who can terrorize the league for a while before you possibly sell him for profit to Europe if he wants to go.
There's a rumor out there that they might want to make a deal on him kind of soon. Trabzonspor is interested, and he's out of contract at the end of this
I just love that Trabzonspor sounds like a Pokemon. It always makes me happy.
It does, but they try to buy everybody. They're always linked to MLS players.
That's true. Al Nassr just needs to be linked to him next, and then I'll be happy. They need to be linked to everyone around the world every time, just so I can get release videos like the one we got for PT. But
open up the suitcase.
Yes, that was so beautiful. But yeah, as far as the rest of this goes, man, I mean, it's an older team with a lot of the key guys who are either approaching or are on the wrong side of 30. So it might be a situation that he runs with this, and then I don't know how much say he gets, but he might have a chance to build a team the way he wants to in a franchise that has a lot of momentum, that has a lot of attention. Yeah, I think it's going to be a real chance for him to make his mark, to abuse that phrase.
The question will be with Akinola specifically, and we'll have to wait and see how this goes. This was coming from Transfermarkt that sources with knowledge of the situation say that Trabzonspor is interested. They're trying to find a striker like what Kyle Larin has done in Turkey this past season, which has been very good. Came from MLS. Toronto exercised this option ahead of the 21 season. I don't know if he has another option. It seems like Transfermarkt does not think that he does. These are the questions sometimes with MLS contracts we don't know. Toronto's got to make a decision. Do you re-up with him now on a long-term deal, knowing that you might sell him in 2 years or 3 years or whatever? But you got to re-up with him, or you got to sell him right now. Because you can't wait. If you wait till the summer, he can sign a pre-deal and then go, and then you're out of everything. And you put a lot of time into developing him. So you've got that. You've got the back line that's older. You've got Josie Altidore older. You've got Michael Bradley who's older. You've got to start working Liam Frazier, and you've got to continue to build around Osorio and Delgado, two really, really good central midfielders in this league. You've got to get your wing play back. You've got to figure out what your outside back situation is with Larea and Auro. Is one going to permanently go over to the left? It's a good
Larea's
team.
Another one that.
Larea drives me insane because he has never met a dive that he didn't like, but he is really, really turned into a top-level outside back in this league. You know, you move him over to the left, then he becomes inverted. Do you play him on the right and move Auro over there, or do you move one of them on and go get a left back? They've got a lot of questions, and Armas is, kind of an unknown quantity because we saw him in a Red Bull system. He didn't do a great job developing young players, and we've had this conversation all year about that was one of the comments that the Red Bull sporting director made. There wasn't any new prospects coming at New York at that time. Now, Caden Clark, I think, has changed that conversation. He was signed just after that. But, Armas didn't really develop him. Was he developing the young players? Obviously, they didn't feel like he was. So they move on. Toronto, you're not necessarily being asked to develop young players. You're being asked to win. Can he do that with a better team, a far more veteran team, but also a team with some question marks? I honestly don't know, but I'm really intrigued to see how it goes.
And with that, I take my leave.
All right. Thank you, Jarrett. Right. Thanks for filling in for John while he was fighting his computer.
No worries. I look forward to getting John on Vista. That'll go really well.
Yeah, one day. Maybe he'll move up to Windows 95 here soon.
Yeah.
It is now safe to shut off your computer.
Yes. Thank you, Jarrett. Jarrett_Smith on the Twitters, if you are not following him. Lots of stuff to get into in hour number 2. We got the NWSL draft. We've got some other things out of NWSL to talk about. We've got the Copa Libertadores to talk about. We've got all the silly season stuff to talk about. Plenty of things. Bayern Munich knocked out on penalties in the German Cup. Mm-hmm. Got to get into that. It's a little early, but it kind of fits time-wise. And I know that there are people who are watching the show specifically for this moment.
Oh, wow.
And then they have things that they have to do, so they have to take their leave. So we're going to go ahead and bump it up by a few minutes. Okay. I've stretched it out to give you some time to mentally prepare because I know it's been a tough day with your computer issues. But John is going to tell us about the wonderful services that our good friend Steve Apolinski can offer you out of Decatur, GA.
There we go. Proud supporter of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. Apolinski & Associates, LLC, for wrongful death and serious injury matters. Only one communication that you need to make, and there's a couple different ways that you can do it. You can get a free consultation by picking up the phone at 404-377-9191, or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com. The third way, large device or small, you can go on the World Wide Web. Type in aa-legal.com in the taskbar. Hit enter, hit return, hit the arrow key, whatever advances it on your screen to the homepage of Apolinski & Associates, LLC. Pop-up window pop-up, low right-hand corner. That's what they do. They pop up. You can get your questions answered that way. 24/7, 365 and a quarter, or 366 in leap years. A couple different ways that you can do it. Web, phone, email. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, they've done this for over 30 years. Over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as legally by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in their state of Georgia, considering I'm in Florida for the next couple of days. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, only one communication that you need to make, and it's with Apolinski & Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
Okay, let's see what people had to say about your performance.
Okay.
Let me scroll back here and go back to the beginning of people's comments. Jason Nix, man, I wish somebody would crash into me so I can call Steve. I don't want anybody to crash into you, Jason. But
well, I mean, that would have worked out well for the Beast, but the Beast dying beat me to it.
Yes.
The 97 Toyota Camry decided to beat me to that idea.
Yes. Good pace. The smile looks a little forced. You're still mad. That's
damn right.
Probably accurate. Going really well so far. Pace is good. No stumbles yet. 10. I got a 10. That's the first 10 I've ever seen on the board.
First.
That is a 10 from Clayton Poss. Very nice.
Wow.
An 8, a 7.5. Still frustrated with the computer issues. Started too fast.
Damn right.
8.2. Good, great pace. Good enunciation. A 9. Wow, that was good. 8 out of 10. 9, best one. 9 overcame the bad day and killed it. Best non-pre-recorded performance. Lack of energy, but good, 7.9. A 9.75.
Wow.
13 out of 16. You got to do math to get that down to the 10-point scale. Move that over there. I got a 9.
That's like a 7.
Okay. Modiflow's harsh. He might be the East German judge today.
Metric.
The frustration from the computer might have focused you. That's a good
interesting.
One. Yeah, that's a good
interesting perception there, yeah.
Could be it. Good scores. That's the best day you have ever had.
That is true. Breaking news sounder, please.
Jeez. It better not be breaking news about Urban Meyer.
No. I don't break any news about Coach Myers at all.
Thank you.
From the second newspaper that we really don't attribute things to or give them credit, it's the one that you get in the mail that happens daily.
Mm-hmm.
Southampton forward Danny Ings returned a positive COVID test following their win over Liverpool and was potentially contagious during the game, according to manager Ralph Hasenhüttl. Ings has been in isolation since the match and is due to come out of it on Friday ahead of their game with Leicester City. Played 77 minutes and scored Southampton's winner in the match at St. Mary's on January 4. He had tested negative before the game. Striker celebrated with his teammate after netting the winner. Hasenhüttl confirmed there had been no other positive tests in his squad since. Speaking ahead of Southampton's trip to Leicester, Hasenhüttl said Danny Ings is out now. He's in self-isolation. He may have been contagious against Liverpool. We've had no other positives since.
But that's like it's January 14th of 2021. We've been dealing with this since March of 2020. We haven't seen issues with spread during games. And no, we haven't seen issues with spread during hugs on the field. Nope. We haven't seen those things. So that part is, I know why it's in there. I understand it. But that has not been the issue. We've seen these situations where a player is tested negative, they've tested positive after a game. We know enough about the science now that you can have it, and you can, yes, be contagious before you test positive. That's why the whole idea about the protocols that you should be following in your training sessions, in your travel, in your pregame, all of those things are there. Because in the game, the studies are there. There is not enough close contact for extended periods of time for that to be any form of a major risk. It's as low level as it can possibly be. So, let's see what happens here, because there's a first time for everything. But we've seen this play out before. It happens. It's obviously not ideal. You've got that. Now you got to keep an eye on that team as you move forward and see if they have issues with being able to fulfill the schedule. Aston Villa will not be playing on Sunday against Everton. They are back to training maybe tomorrow, or it might be Saturday. They have gotten their outbreak under control. They will be playing Newcastle on January 23rd in the evening game in England. That's also been rescheduled. That's been sorted out. But they will not be playing Sunday against Everton. Haven't seen any other Premier League cancellations or postponements or worries about that just yet. The last round of testing was slightly better than the previous round that was announced. It was double the amount of tests in both, and I think it was 40 the previous one and 36 in this last one. I mean, look, it is what it is, and it's something that everybody's going to have to be careful with. There's a lot of focus right now in England on this whole thing about celebrating goals. That's not the issue. It's a red herring. It's frustrating that is becoming the issue when the issues are honestly pretty clear if you've been paying attention to this stuff. Colin Miller, who wrote a great piece, he's the editor at Football España, which is a good website in English to follow La Liga and everything in Spain. He also wrote a book about the Sevilla-Real Betis rivalry. Really good follow on Twitter if you're not already. Miller and with an AR, MILLAR _ He had a thread this morning that I want to share a little bit of. He said this manufactured faux outrage over footballers hugging is driven by a hapless government desperate to deflect from 1,500 daily deaths, 1,500 plus daily deaths. Footballers must do their part all over again. They're being tested. It's a contact sport. The studies are there to show that the risk of transmission doing the sport is incredibly low. Football authorities, and this is from Colin Miller, football authorities have been infuriatingly weak on players flouting COVID-19 protocol, not helped by Pep Guardiola and others justifying extremely privileged people breaking guidelines. Players should be banned, fined. But hugging, when everyone is tested, is a non-issue. I totally agree. They're ignoring where you have the issues. Players breaking protocols and having parties. Players breaking protocols and going out to nightclubs. Stuff like that. That's where the issues have been. And they're saying, oh, well, it's been really hard and blah, 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 blah. No. Ban them. Fine them. Don't fire them, I guess, unless they do it multiple times. You got to get this under control. That's the issue. That's where you're going to have spread. That's where you're going to contract it. That's where you're going to have far more risk than anywhere else. The rest of it is not the story as much. And it's becoming the storyline right now. To the point that they're talking, I think today you have the league, and I don't know if there's a government representative in the conversation about reminding the players of the protocols, and I think there'll be some kind of back and forth. Stop focusing on the celebration side after goals and focus on that stuff. Make it clear. If players are caught out of whatever their personal bubble is, then they're fined a huge amount of money. Then they're suspended for a game, or 2, or 3. Put it on the equivalent of striking somebody. Put it on the equivalent of punching somebody. Do it, because they're putting their teammates at risk. I think what Colin said that kind of grabbed my attention in his thread was, if you think that hugging in football is beyond the pale, then you are ignoring the science and safety protocol of the testing protocols. You also think that close proximity at set pieces is also unsafe. By continuation, you think that football is unsafe to be staged at all. Football is absolutely safe to continue. There is zero evidence that hugging, which has happened for 7 months, is a risk. Journalists should not be obsessed with optics. Government want football to continue. It is the ultimate tool to distract people from their failings. You're zeroing in on the wrong things. If the agencies who are allowing elite sport to continue, and this is a more of a European conversation, and I want to get into something Byrne just said too on the Twitch pitch, and we'll get into that here in just a second. If you want to have the exemptions that are there, and we talked about the exemptions with Celtic, who have Scottish conversation has been a little more strict on this, and they had, you're getting more risk of those exemptions being pulled for elite sport. Okay, if you want to really get into should it be pulled or shouldn't it be pulled, talk about the people not following the protocols. That's the issue, because that's taking advantage of the exemptions and being able to do what they do while others can't. Hugging in a game after a goal is not an issue. there is an optic to it, and yeah, people are talking about the optics of it, and I think that's the only reason that it should be coming up is the optics. But there are bigger issues with it, with what's going on. Players not following protocols and having holiday gatherings, stuff like that, that's the issue, not this.
That's what's gotten me more than anything in all of this. When we can go back, Kyle Walker and all those are the things that folks need to focus on. When players go outside of the protections that have been set up so they can perform and do their job at an elite level, when you're having holiday gatherings, when you're going out and going to parties like we've seen in the NBA recently, and when you're seeing stuff like that, that's what you need to focus on. Don't focus on what's going on in the field of play, because everything has been taken into account, you'd like to think, so the game can be as safe as possible. Everything has been thought out. Everything has been processed. Everyone is sitting socially distanced. The processionals are different. You're coming in from different places. All of those game day things to make sure that the match happens, that has been thought out, thought through, and gone through every single step of the way to make sure that the game happens. When you have players leave the arena, leave their competitive bubble, go and have their parties, go and step outside, go and do those things that are outside the purview of what has been done to make sure that game day is safe and that players can perform and be as 100% healthy as possible. That's what needs to be focused on. When there is an individual responsibility to make sure that things can happen, that's what needs to be focused on, not the hugging and all that kind of stuff. But no, you're looking at something that doesn't need to be looked at. Focus on the individuals and not paying attention to the rules that have been put in place.
Burned on the Twitch pitch said, I've honestly never understood why they don't also give quick antigen tests before the games, and especially the leagues that have the money to buy them and do that, because we're not really seeing the issues now with having access to testing. We're not here outside of the actual just scheduling of it. I think for a while there we were having issues with getting tests, period. I don't know if that's an issue in most places now. Burns says, why aren't they doing the quick antigen test before games like in the EPL or the NBA? They cost €15. It shows whether people are contagious or not, the good ones. The good tests. Still do PCR twice a week. You still do that side of it, but you add the pregame tests. And if somebody tests positive in the pregame, they don't play. And then they go into the protocol to isolate. It seems like a no-brainer. It's just, and Moniflo gives a good example too about the protocol side, and this was absolutely accurate. Remember back early on in all of this where the manager in the Bundesliga went to the store to get toothpaste and was fined and suspended. That's a whole lot better than don't celebrate a goal. Like that one is a risk. One is not. Or, okay, if you want to really get real with it, one is a much bigger risk than the other.
Yeah. Aaron Ramsdale going to the store.
Yeah, it's just... it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. We will see. We will see what they do here. Byrne talks about that antigen test. He said in Europe you can buy the tests in pharmacies. They're cheap. Regular people use it before family get-togethers. It makes sense as long as you know it's only valid for a short while. Why are they not doing that in these leagues? I don't know. I don't know. Are they doing that in the Bundesliga, Bernd? That would be a question. Is anybody doing that yet? Because it seems like a no-brainer. And if they're not doing it, I'd like to know why. Is it about testing availability? Is it about not wanting to monopolize them? I don't know. Look, y'all got to be careful out there. If you didn't see the story that I shared last night, Chris Coons, who has been a college coach in the area, a huge Atlanta United fan, big part of the community, absolute tragedy with his family. And the story was at Fox 5. I shared it from the Soccer Down Here account as well, because he asked me to. And he said, and he says it in the piece at Fox 5, he wants people to learn from it and to understand the risk that is still out there. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you're probably hearing about it, but just to reiterate, Grady's basically full. The overflow at the World Congress Center is basically full. Emergency rooms are basically full. I don't know if the rapidly spreading variation is in Atlanta or not. I think it's a pretty safe assumption that it probably is. I think there's even been speculation that maybe we've got our own rapidly spreading variation of this thing. It's scary right now. I'll tell you my experience. I'll get real with you. I've been sick and feeling like crap for a while now, and I have sinus problems consistently. When the temperatures change and the weather goes up and down, my sinuses get wrecked, and that's what it felt like when I first started to get a sore throat and I had sinus pressure, and all felt normal. But of course, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, there is this thing going on. And you start thinking about, what you've done and where you've been. And I haven't been many places. And I've been masked up everywhere I've been. And I've been careful. And I've washed my hands everywhere I've been. It lingered and lingered and lingered. And I got a COVID test Sunday. I didn't get my result back until yesterday at dinner time. And it was negative. But Ashley, my girlfriend, who lives with me, has been sick. And they think she might have COVID. So did I have it before and then it's out of my system and I didn't test positive, but I still obviously have some symptoms. I still have the sore throat. I still have a cough. Luckily, nothing much more than that. Haven't had the fever, haven't had the taste and smell issues, haven't had any of that. But did I have it and then didn't have enough of it in my system to test positive? Did I test positive, or would I have tested positive earlier if I went to test earlier? Because Ashley's been in less places than I have. So she wouldn't have got it from anybody else other than me. And I've been literally, when I started going back through the last 3 weeks before I started to feel sick, been to the grocery store, been to a pharmacy, been to a laundromat, and been to a gas station. That's it. That's it. And everywhere I go, I've got a mask on. Everywhere I go, wash my hands when I come back in the car. When I went to the laundromat, I didn't sit inside the laundromat. I sat in my car. Like all the different stuff that I could do to be careful. And, I've talked about this for months and months. We'll see. But no, Ashley got checked out yesterday, and she was tested yesterday. And I think she should get her results back today because it was a whole different procedure. But they said the symptoms she was having were very likely COVID. So this is what we're dealing with. And I mean, I tested negative. I'm like, should I go get tested again? I don't know. Like, this is the reality of it. You can be really careful and still have a problem. So don't be reckless. Like, that's the thing, is you can be super careful and still have potential issues. So don't be out there and be reckless. Wear a mask out there, por favor, because you're protecting people around you. The mask doesn't protect you nearly as much. They say maybe it helps some. It protects the people around. So just do your part, because we've all got to get through this together and be super careful. That's all. That's the reality right now. So, like, if you need a bit of a wake-up call with all of it, watch that video. Listen to me telling you, like, now I don't know. Like, I don't really know exactly what to do at this point. I can go get tested again. I don't know if it's going to show anything, but I mean, I still feel crappy. Like, it's just it's incredibly frustrating. So, and I'll, what I said about going to the store too, in those 3 weeks, I think I went into stores probably 4 times. Because as things got later on in this, I stopped going to the store on a regular basis. We order groceries, eat the delivery cost, which I'd rather not, but that's what you're doing. all that stuff, you got to be as careful as you can, and it's still risky. So just be super careful out there. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you some recent examples with me. I mean, during football season, one of the crew tested positive. And he let us know as soon as possible. And so then we're all getting tested, because then I'm starting to think, when did I interact with this particular individual? How close was I? Was I wearing a mask at the time? And of course I was. And it's all of those things go through your head. Here in Florida, I have been in a couple of different buildings, and it's because no one here delivers, and so you have to go pick up. And so you go pick up, you go in, you go out, and you come back to where we are. One of the places I went into, the staff was wearing masks. I looked around. I did not see a single patron wearing a mask. And don't think for half a second I wasn't sitting there, my head wasn't on a swivel trying to sit there and look, okay, I need to stay as far away as possible and get out of here as quickly as possible, wearing a mask the whole time. So that's where we are. Just, I can't emphasize it enough. Just, as you're saying, be careful. I always phrase it this way. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm wearing a mask to protect you from me. That's how I've always phrased it.
Yep, because, we don't have access to testing every day. We just don't. There's no way that, your average person has that. So, I mean, that's the slowdown right now. I mean, if you're needing to get tested, that's what I just went through and it took 2 days to find a place where I could get in to get tested. Yeah. Everybody's full. There's a ton of people getting tested right now because there's a ton of issues locally in the Atlanta area. So it's the reality, I mean, I don't like it. I know you don't like it either, but you can't avoid it. So you just have to be careful. We got a lot of other things to talk about. So let's do that, because this stuff is no fun. But it's important, sadly. You do have a new manager of the Colombian national team now. It is no surprise. Reynaldo Rueda, who was previously in Chile. It was announced yesterday that he was finally leaving the Chilean job. So he is in charge in Colombia. Chile now has an opening. There's been speculation that Sebastian Becasese, who was an assistant for the Chilean national team, so he's got experience there, is the front runner or the favorite for that potential job. Would make sense. Would make total sense, except there was an issue with getting his last pay. He worked with Sampaoli when he was the manager there, and I think they at least had to file a grievance. I don't know if it went to a full lawsuit about a good chunk of money that was owed to them at the end of their run. So I hope that's sorted out if they want to get Becasese. But, of course, these things can get handled if that's the route that both people want to go in. Another name that has come up that I thought was surprising, two actually. One was a while back, and we'll see if it gets revisited now because he has said a couple of things recently. Louis Van Gaal. Louis Van Gaal was linked to this job at one point. I think somebody from Chile said that, yes, a proposal had been sent to them from somebody saying they were Van Gaal's representatives. I don't think there was an official comment from Van Gaal's people about that, but he did say recently that he is not retired. I think people assumed that he was retired. He has not officially retired, so that would be a wild experience. I'd be all for watching that play out. The other name that came up here recently is Roberto Donadoni, which is kind of a fascinating one. Donadoni has been in China. He's managed in Italy as well. He was linked to the job in local media in these last few days as it became clear that Rueda was going to leave. That thing got drawn out for so long because there was a back and forth between Colombia and Chile about how much they were going to have to pay to get him out of the contract. Initially, it was going to be $1 million. Colombia wasn't going to pay that. Reportedly, around the first of the year, it came down to $500,000, and I'm assuming it was probably in that ballpark. Chile's in 6th place right now in the World Cup qualifiers. 4 teams automatically go. 5th place team goes into a playoff. You're still really early in the process, but Chile and Colombia both have some work to do to get in.
I'm like you. If Van Hall had been off of folks' radar for years, and there've been maybe Van Hall here, but insisting he's not retired. If that does come to the fore, I think it would be interesting, especially with the fight that would be for both Chile and Colombia trying to get into at least the 5th place spot so you can get your qualifier, or into that 4th place spot where you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. That would be interesting. That would be an interesting dynamic if that came to the pass.
Give me an all or nothing on Louis Van Gaal and the Chilean national team, please. I would be so in on that. It'd be amazing. Chile is in 6th place, ahead of Colombia on goal differential. Both are on 4 points. Both are 2 points out of 4th. It is Brazil on 12. They're perfect. Argentina on 10. They haven't lost. Ecuador on 9. Really good position for Ecuador. Paraguay's on 6. 1 win, 3 draws. They have not lost yet. Uruguay's on 6. 2 wins, 2 losses. Chile, 1 win, 2 losses, 1 draw on 4. Colombia, same record, but they have a -5 goal differential, thanks to Ecuador. Venezuela's on 3 points. They got a win in their last one, 3 losses. Peru with 1 point, Bolivia with 1 point. And the next match days are coming up March 25th and March 30th. And just early glances at what's to come. Colombia, Rueda will host Brazil in his first game. That's fun. Argentina will host Uruguay on March 25th. That's always fun. Venezuela will host Ecuador. That's an interesting one. And Chile and Paraguay in a really big one for whoever the new Chilean manager is. A win would have them jump Paraguay in the standings. The second match day in that round, you get Brazil hosting Argentina on March 30th. That is always a good time. Ecuador hosting Chile is a very underrated one. And Paraguay hosting Colombia, another one that Paraguay has 2 really important games in this round. South American World Cup qualifying, and this is the last time it will be like this because of the expanded World Cup coming. South American World Cup qualifying is the greatest. It's brutal. 18 games. 10 teams, you play a double round robin, 18 games, you're 4 games in right now. It is a brutal run. But those next 2 are going to be fun for the new Chilean manager, whoever that is, and for Reinaldo Rueda, who is in charge in Colombia. There's been some questions about Moises Caicedo, and our Ecuadorian correspondent El Mataflo's had a couple of updates. The news about the loan to a Belgian second division team made its way to Ecuador, and people weren't exactly happy. The sporting director at Independiente del Valle said that the deal wasn't done yet with Brighton, so maybe it's back open for possibilities of things, and I don't think that means Atlanta necessarily, but things, and let's see what could happen there, because it hasn't been announced just yet. So keep an eye on the Moises Caicedo situation. I mentioned Ignacio Fernandez of River. Teise had it earlier that he could be leaving River. Like, now there's a lot of questions about what River does going forward, because they've got a month before the next domestic competition in Argentina starts. At this point, Gallardo's going to stay and do that, but is he going to stay past that? We don't know. That'll take them up to the summer window that most people around the world will be on. There's a lot of players who are coming up to the end of their deals. I think Fernandez is one. He's older, but MLS has been linked to him. Liga MX has been linked to him. I think European clubs have been linked to him as well, some places he's been previously. That would be an interesting get for somebody in MLS. There's other players at River, too. De La Cruz has been linked with moves a lot of different places, and I believe his contract is up in the summer. I think they have a couple other contracts up in the summer. River's a club to keep an eye on. Boca will be a club to keep an eye on. They were knocked out of the Libertadores last night, 3-0 to Santos. And, I mean, it was pretty poor. Russo, the manager, said it's on me. It was a bad performance. You saw the frustration with Frank Fabra, who stomped on a player, got an immediate red card. Santos, this is wild. They haven't been that good. They really haven't been that good. They're broke. Tim Vickery at ESPN had a piece about this. They're broke. They've been banned from making new signings. The president was impeached for mismanagement. Not the only impeachment going around these days. Relations between the players and the directors have been strained. There's been coronavirus outbreaks. There's been injuries. And they got through Gremio. They got through Boca. You know, they were able to keep a couple of players who almost left the club before this Boca series. They were able to get it done with loans being renegotiated and moves being put off until after the Libertadores is done. And they're in the final against Palmeiras. It is an all-Brazilian final. When we all looked at it and saw River and Boca in the semis and said, okay, Super Classico again, here we go, neither one gets there.
How much time do you think Carlos Tevez has left on the clock?
Going to be 37 in a few weeks. He is reportedly out of contract at Boca in the summer. There is an option to extend it to the end of the year. He's still got tread on the tires. He's been he was good last night. I mean, he was fighting for the shirt even at the end when it's 3-0 and it's over. He's still trying to drive the team forward. He came back to Boca to try to win the Libertadores, and he's been close. He hasn't been able to get it done. Does he go for one more time? I kind of think he does. There's questions because the relationship with him and the board hasn't always been great. I think it's resolved at least enough to extend that 6 months. I don't think he goes anywhere else to play. I don't see that. But yeah, he can be useful to Boca for the rest of this calendar year, for sure. I think they should keep him. They should give him one more opportunity at the Libertadores. Because, I mean, look, they were in a final. They lost to River and the craziness of that one. Semi here. Give him one more opportunity. But they're in a final this weekend. The Copa Diego Armando Maradona. It was, the League Cup that they renamed for Maradona after he passed. We know what Maradona means to Boca. We know what Maradona means to Tevez. I think he is going to do everything imaginable to lift that trophy for his club. And they're playing it on short rest. They were in Santos last night. They're playing Bonfield in the final on Sunday. They tried to get it postponed a week. Doesn't appear like that was going to happen. So can he at least get that? I think they can. They should beat Bonfield. It's not a guarantee. They should. Better team. They've got more talent. They had more talent than Santos. They couldn't get it done. We'll see. But I think he sticks around for the calendar year. I do. I think they should re-up and give him one more crack at the Libertadores.
Okay. We've got stuff on the Twitters. You like to run that down, or do you have other stuff on your plate?
Let's do it. What we got on Twitter?
All right. Dan Graham provided an interesting link this morning. And for those who have Netflix, apparently there is going to be a Pele documentary released on Netflix on February 23rd.
Yeah, I've heard about this. I'm intrigued. Is he going to use it to claim that he has more goals scored than anybody else in the history of the planet?
That'd be my guess. I think that might be it might be like at the end, like one of the last edits. And oh, by the way,
throw that in just in case.
Yeah, just kind of throw that in.
Maybe so.
Nathan Pugh, the Bayern kits yesterday. Some peak 90s MLS stuff there. Hideous. #Thursday thoughts.
Oh, no, I liked it. And we've talked about this. It was a collaboration with Pharrell. John, do you remember our conversation about Pharrell? Do you know who he is?
Like the dude with the big hat, I'm happy PH Pharrell, or
it's good that's what you remember. No.
Are we talking Scott, or are we talking the singer dude?
Do you think Scott has a clothing line?
It might.
Do you think Scott has a clothing line that would be outfitting Bayern Munich?
That'd be a no.
Yeah. Pharrell, who is known for more than a hat, one of the greatest producers in hip-hop and R&B, did this for a few teams. I know Real Madrid was involved in it. I can't remember who else. I liked it. I mean, it's a throwback to the 90s, but then it's done in this style. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I don't know if they'll ever wear it again after losing to a second division team.
Oh, I remember those pictures now. Yeah,
it might be cursed now, but
yeah,
I liked it.
Like Georgia and the black uniforms.
Well, no, they've worn them again, and they had some success in them. The equivalent would be cause I don't remember if Bayern's worn these before or not. Maybe they have. It'd be almost like the U.S. baby blue uniforms they wore in U.S. Cup '96 when they wore it for the first time and they they drew Mexico and lost the U.S. Cup, and they never wore them again. They only wore it the one time. And those actually looked really good. But, there you go. So maybe they're cursed now. Maybe Bayern won't do it. Arsenal did it. Thank you, J-Dub. Yeah, it was Adidas. It was a partnership with Adidas. Arsenal was the other one that I remember doing it. I think Madrid had some too.
I think I remember that.
Oh, Manchester United I think had some too.
Yeah, there was a photo that was released when the collaboration came out, and there were the mock-ups of each of the jerseys.
Juve as well. If you're not on the Discord yet and you subscribe, again, let us know and we'll get you sorted out. The grand poobah of the hashtag Kits channel is Ricky Ricardo. So Ricky, I'm sure, will already have pictures of these posted up in the channel if you have not seen them. So some of them I didn't like, some of them I did. The Arsenal one, I just didn't like the original kit, so I didn't like this redo of it. The Bayern one was the one I liked a lot.
I think the Juve one for me was the one that stuck in my head. That one and the Real Madrid.
Okay.
Were the ones that was my lean.
I liked it, but I didn't like the performance yesterday. Not good. They gave up a late equalizer.
Third?
Yeah, and then lost on penalties to Holstein Kiel, who has never been in the Bundesliga in its current format. They won in the old format. In 1912, they were the German champions. But they are third in the second division right now, so maybe first time in 12 years Bayern have failed to reach the semifinals of the German Cup.
In our discussion in hour number one, Kevin from Charlotte says, I'm quickly siding with ownership and MLS on the CBA issues. I know I took a pay cut along with many others and way more than 5%, and many others lost their jobs. Seems ignorant that MLSPA think they shouldn't be impacted like everyone else has.
It's not a great look, and a lot of it's posturing, and a lot of it is for negotiating tactics, and I understand that, but it's a bad look when, a lot of people lost more than 5% of their income last year, and especially when you go back and you look at how many games they actually played, they did not play anywhere near 95% of the games, and they got 95% of the salary, so that's just how it goes. And it's, I guess the biggest thing is because we're following the game around the world, Real Madrid players took a 10% cut recently. Barcelona players, man, they keep having to go back to them to take more cuts. It's just, it's tough. It's tough worldwide right now, and MLS is no different. And yes, the MLS has owners who have a lot of money. And, pointing out that some of them didn't lose much money during the pandemic, and some of them might have even made money during the pandemic. Yeah, but these are businesses. And if the businesses are not profitable or they're going to have big losses, you don't normally stay in business.
Yeah.
So, that's a reality of it. And it's just frustrating that there's a lot of posturing. The posturing's not going to win an agreement for either side in the way that they want. Don't do the posturing bit. Just sit down and be adults.
Bartimus Prime wanted to give you a shout-out and the SDH community for the help and information yesterday. He says, y'all are amazing. Hashtag in this together.
Yeah. Look, that's what we do. If there's stuff that we can amplify and stuff that we can help make connections, we're going to try to do that. That's been the beauty of the past year, doing this. And, I've said it before that when everything stopped, I didn't know if we would do a daily show because I didn't know what we would talk about without any games going on. But it became important for us to do it. It became important for me to do it because it gave me something consistent to do and focus on and take my mind off of everything and just work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, when people would say, like, hey, it made things feel normal, that's the motivation to keep doing what we do. And it's created this, network. And I always want to use whatever network I have for good. So that's what we will always do. And wherever we can help, we're going to help.
Jason Nix says, since I don't see it on the board this morning, I wanted to get your thoughts on Catarina Macario switching to the USWNT and the NWSL draft yesterday. Trinity Rodman picked second, NWSL breaking from US Soccer 2. I think that's the biggest women's soccer news lately.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit yesterday before the draft. Macario's a huge get. I mean, Leon is also looking at trying to get Vivian Medema, one of the greatest goal scorers in the women's game ever, and on an incredible run with Arsenal. They're trying to add her. I mean, they're putting together a ridiculous group of talent because they can. So Macario going there is huge, and being available for the U.S. women is huge, and you need to start bringing in this next generation. And you look at the draft, and especially the first 3 players in it are players that you're looking at for the national team sooner rather than later. Emily Fox, who's in national team camp now, and we've seen with the national team from North Carolina, drafted by Racing Louisville. That's the number 1 pick. Trinity Rodman, who, yes, the last name. That's been the headline everywhere. She's an incredible player. Incredible talent. I don't care who her dad is. Incredible. She didn't play in college. She was a freshman at Washington State, was going to play in the fall. Obviously, there wasn't a season in the fall. She could have played in the spring, but she's going to go straight into the pros, and she's got the ability to do it. So now we're starting to see women's players do that. Trinity Rodman will be one to watch. She's 18. A lot of room to grow. She's going to Washington. Brianna Pinto going to Sky Blue, another one who's been part of the youth national teams. She announced on Tuesday that on Twitter that she was going to pursue a pro career, but did say she was going to play the spring season at North Carolina and then join Sky Blue because players have that option. It's the weirdness of the college season being moved into the spring, and it was something that they did negotiate out with the NCAA to have the draft instead of waiting till mid-season to have the draft, which would have made no sense. Have the draft, but players could opt into the college season before joining their pro teams. It's the right way to do it. I'm glad they found an agreement that made sense. The rest of the first round, Kiki Pickett from Stanford goes to Kansas City with the 4th pick. Kansas City made a trade to get that pick, the allocation money. I don't really know what the market is yet on allocation money in NWSL. I think that's still getting sorted out, but I'm glad they added it. It helps grow the league, especially without the federation putting maybe as much money into it and just structuring things differently. The owners need to, and they've got a cap, and they need a cap, and they need to keep the cap reasonable because they need to bring in revenues to be able to justify growing it. NWSL has to be treated as a business, not a charity of the federation. For it to really succeed, it's got to be run as a business. So you got to grow the cap as you bring the revenues in. But you've also got to invest in talent, and allocation money can help you do that and stretch things. Others, Racing Louisville added hometown player Emina Ekic, senior at Louisville, Offensive Player of the Year in the ACC. Nice to get those hometown players. Like, that's a big one for a new team. That's huge. So the draft went forever. 40 picks. It went almost 5 hours. But they got it done and got a lot of conversation going. Racing Louisville starting to come together. Some interesting storylines coming up in the NWSL. I'm excited to see Rodman play at the pro level. Excited to see what Pinto can be when she joins Sky Blue. Emily Fox, really good defender. Good for an expansion team to get a player like that who is young but has national team experience. Makes sense. It's going to be a fun season. And then you look ahead and you've got Angel City and Sacramento coming in 22. The question will continue to be asked, when does Atlanta get in the mix? Because I think they will. I just don't know what that timeline looks like. I really think they will. And with that growth, is it 23? Is it 24? Is it in that ballpark? Maybe so. You get the two teams on the West Coast in 22. Try to get two in on the other side of the country in 23 or 24, and continue to go. Excited to see it.
Yeah, I am too. And there's also the discussion, I think it was last week, about San Jose possibly kicking the tires on having an NWSL franchise as well. So the interest is there. Stephen Goff this morning, he's got a piece up on Trinity Rodman. So if you can get into the Washington Post, he caught up with Trinity Rodman. From Stephen Goff, NWSL turns attention to arranging the Challenge Cup in the spring. The target date is the weekend of April 10th.
Okay.
Format options, 4 games apiece, 2 home, 2 away, a single bubble like last summer or multiple bubbles. Health and safety, fans, TV, and travel among the considerations. The Washington Spirit is now a Virginia-based club after 7 years in Maryland. Dateline on the news releases is Leesburg. They're going to be training at Segra Field, the home of Loudoun United, starting September 1st, weather permitting. Eventually, nearby DC United training venue under construction, the player apartments are going to be in Loudoun County, and the plan is to play 6 home matches in Leesburg and 6 at Audi Field.
Makes total sense. Makes sense. Things are moving forward. It's becoming more professional. It's looking more professional. Need to continue to grow the revenues. That's going to be the biggest thing coming out of all this, is get people back in the buildings, get fans back in the stands, continue to grow the sponsorship side. I think the NWSL did an amazing job in 2020 in pivoting and bringing in new sponsors through all of it. Great moves, and they've got to continue it. They can't rest. It's got to continue to push forward. Another one real quick before you jump back into Twitter, John Arnold, who, if you haven't seen some of the posts going around yesterday, there's going to be a new outlet in Texas called The Striker. And John Arnold, who covers CONCACAF, will be part of it. They'll have coverage of the Dynamo, of Dallas, of Austin, of everything else going on in Texas. Definitely an outlet to follow, The Striker Texas. But John writes about Liga MX as well. He writes about everything in CONCACAF. And Liga MX, we talked about how their president moved into an international business section, kind of a new area of the league, because they haven't really focused on this before. And obviously a lot of that will be in the United States, but not all of it. And there will be some other aspects to it than just playing games. IMG has become the exclusive agent to Liga MX. Adolfo Barra, the senior vice president of football events at IMG, talks about the sponsorship opportunities for a league that has 100 million fans in Mexico and 50 million fans in North America. Sportbusiness.com has more on that. And another thing that John posted, in addition to the quote tweet on that, was that the league-wide deal announced this week with Tecate has already hit the guarantee in that partnership, which will last 3 years and has a league option for 2 more. So just more and more and more. I mean, it's Liga MX is going to compete for the hearts and minds and eyeballs and wallets of soccer fans in this country, and they're going to start to do it more in English. But I think they're going to do a lot of it in conjunction with Major League Soccer, because that partnership is going to help both sides in the long run. So keep an eye on all that kind of stuff with Liga MX. It's pretty fascinating to see.
In the Twitters, once again, getting back to the discussion about the MLS and the PA, Tafka says, it wouldn't surprise me if the MLSPA was shocked by how reasonable the offer was and felt like they have to make a show of discourse to not look like they were ready to accept the offer outright. Simply extending the new CBA for 2 more years seems pretty damn reasonable to me.
Yeah, and you can argue about the length of time to extend it. And if, you say, well, let's extend it for 1 year, and then the league says, well, okay, we wanted 2 years, but we'll do your 1 year if you give us X. That's what adults do.
Mm-hmm.
Just go sit down and do this. Like, you can't argue that there's not losses. It's impossible to argue that. You can argue how much, you can argue how long they'll last in 21, and you don't know, and I don't know, and nobody knows. Because we really don't know what it's going to look like in 21. But there's going to be an effect. So work together and get it done. And if you need to create a time to sit back down and reassess Once you get through this, if that's in 24, if that's in 25, do it. Like, be reasonable on both sides and sit down and do this, because the posturing and the back and forth in the media will make it more difficult to get a deal done.
Nathan Pugh says the MLS issue is weird for me because I have a moral distaste for any union, but understand the need in a sports context. I agree with you, Jason. Neither side is really doing themselves proud here from a PR perspective.
Yeah, and we don't know the whole thing. I mean, I'm never, in the idea that all of anything is bad, but we don't know the whole picture. We don't know if the Players Association responded in some form or fashion to the league and just said they didn't have a response yet. If they didn't respond and the league did their media availability to kind of force a response, okay, it's still not the best way to handle this, but if they felt like they were backed into a corner, this whole 30 days thing that they're both saying opposite things on, like, that's the stuff that drives me nuts. Like, they have it on paper. It was in the agreement. It is or it isn't.
Yeah.
And if there is an ability for them to agree to extend it, then somebody say that. Don't create an argument over a contractual element. That's dumb. It is something or it isn't something. Like, don't do this stuff. That's the things that drive me crazy. Like, work together, because the league doesn't exist without the players. The players don't have a place to play without the league. Period. The league has improved American soccer. There is no way to argue that. American soccer is in a better place now than it would have been if you didn't have MLS. That happened day one of MLS, because you went from the previous year, the championship series being held in a high school stadium with bleachers on one side on a field that was 60 yards wide, Adams Stadium, game one. And game two was at Memorial Stadium in Seattle, and it was on tape delay nationally. Game three was on tape delay, the final game of the series. You had a team fold like weeks before the season started. You had Atlanta have to find a new owner weeks before the season started. This was 95. The next year, you didn't have that in MLS. You were playing in Giant Stadium. You were playing at RFK. You were playing at Foxborough. It felt big because it was in comparison. So MLS has raised the level. It's raised the standard. That's good. It's great. They needed the players to do it. Handle it. Create the partnership and move forward, because neither one of you exists without the other. So stop being silly.
Yeah. Turner Kirby tuned in late and missed a Longshore rant.
Yeah, I was fired up
on that. Lewis Martin, quote, grow up and act like adults, please. True for MLS and all stuff going on in the world.
Oh, there's that.
Jake Michaels is in this morning. He says he can't listen live today, so he's not sure if it's already been discussed, but he feels the same way as Kevin from Charlotte. He read the piece at The Athletic that did a great job of explaining both sides, using full quotes for more context. He thinks both sides should quit posturing and negotiate. Neither side will be immune from losses in 2021. So go figure out the best deal and let's safely get back to it. This is definitely oversimplifying it. And he went ahead and linked to the article from The Athletic. But that was what Jake was thinking this morning.
For sure. I mean, it's complicated. It's more complicated than we know. I get that. I understand. But that's why you pay people to do these things. That's why you have a governing board for the Players Association. That's why the league has lawyers and has all of their front office people dealing with this. Sit down and sort it out, because it's obviously not normal right now. And the 2021 season will not be normal from a timing perspective, from a revenue perspective. 2021 in general will not be normal. Hopefully by the end of the year, it'll look a whole lot more like normal, or at least whatever this new normal is that everybody talks about. But when that is, I don't know. Is that September? Or is that December? Is that March of 22? I don't know. Nobody does. So work together so everybody can come out of this in the best shape possible. Just work together. That's how you have to live right now. Work together, MLS players and MLS, please.
Tafka also saw the Spike video released by Atlanta United and was wondering if something was happening. Seems like an odd time to randomly drop a video.
Looking for it. It's a video. I mean, I don't know. I don't know of anything happening, but it's a video that they did, and I think they'd released before, and they released it again. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if it means anything or not.
Turner Kirby back in, and he says the problem with testing before games is then you would have to contact trace, and now you're potentially having a game canceled when teams have already spent money to travel.
No, you wouldn't. Not for the rapid tests that Bernd was talking about, because it is literally like, are you good to play right now? You're not. The contact tracing doesn't come into play with that, because you're already doing the PCR and you're doing the testing then. Now, there would have to be the agreement that the contact tracing doesn't affect this part of it, because if everybody else tests good, then they are good to play in that game right then, because they are not contagious. It's a different test. I don't even know if that's being used in this country, to be perfectly honest. Should be, for these kind of situations. It should be for offices. It should be for factories. It should be for these kinds of things where it's $15. It's worth it to not have an outbreak in your organization. You do the test, and I believe it is a very quick snapshot of, are you contagious right now? And if you test positive, you don't play. That's it. And you have to do all the follow-up testing and everything after, because you're still doing that. And that's where contact tracing comes in. And after the game, you're going to have to check. But players would not be contagious to participate in that game. I think that's the key.
In our discussion about being safe in and around others, Chris Hutchison says, I got cursed by a jogging Karen when I moved off the sidewalk and pulled my mask up as she approached. We have a real problem in this society. # use your mask. Please, use your mask. Just do it. It's not even worth arguing about anymore. I don't understand why people would. There's just no way to justify it anymore, to be perfectly honest. And it's incredibly frustrating. Put a mask on. It's not that difficult. Do it for the people around you. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Tafka is encouraging Atlanta United to just show Independiente del Valle a suitcase of money when it comes to Moises Caicedo. That always seems to help. You never know. Things can happen. Probably not likely here, but anything can happen. I don't think it's the money, though. And that's the thing, is I don't think the money was the issue, because it still sounds like Atlanta, or whoever it was from MLS, I think it's a safe assumption that it would have been Atlanta, that they had the best offer. So, I mean, more money, does that change it? I don't know. I think it's going to depend on these other situations. I mean, you're getting a whole bunch of talk about, Brighton being close to signing Moises Caicedo, or Graham Potter refused to comment on the reports. But if they're signing him to loan him out to a second division team in Belgium, he can get a better offer than that. He'd have a better offer playing here. He'd have better, preparation for those World Cup qualifiers, playing for Ecuador in March, because that's key. And you're going to get better competition playing here. Now, again, there is the question about the season and all of that. Yeah, that's totally understandable. But going to a second division Belgian team versus training under Gabriel Heinze and getting a few games in preseason and regular season, it's better preparation to be here. And that's going to be the big question for him and his people making this decision, is if it is just to get loaned out, that's not the best move for him. He can do better. But we'll see if they get it done. News out of Barcelona. Thank you, Ricky Ricardo. The electoral board has proclaimed Joan Laporta, Victor Font, and Toni Freixa as candidates for the club presidency. Yeah, if you remember, there was another candidate that was looked at not as a favorite, but definitely was expected to be on the ballot, Emily Roussaud, and he withdrew from the race. He was right on the edge of having enough signatures to get on the ballot, and I think there were some that still needed to be verified, and he withdrew because he was right on that line of having enough. Laporta's the favorite. There was also some talk that Roussaud would withdraw and then work with Freixa and form a coalition, and that was shot down. So, Toni Freixa is a total wild card here. Victor Font is more of an outsider to change it. Joan Laporta
has had success as the president before and is running again to try to bring that back. It seems like Laporta is the obvious solution here, but maybe there are people who think that they need an outsider like Victor Font, who said that he talks to Xavi more than he talks to his wife. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what he said. I don't think Laporta would be against Xavi coming back into the team, but he's not like putting that out as his number one thing. I think Laporta's coming at it from a little bit more of a, let me get in and assess everything. Let me figure out the right plans. Let me figure out the way to go forward. I think Laporta makes sense.
And who put this in here? Oh, Nathan Pugh, once again, last one on Twitter, linking to Henry Jackson, a futures football writer, Anfield Index Radio for LBC, published in the Times, quoting Mark Clattenburg. Clattenburg says that Jurgen Klopp is wrong to suggest there is an aura around United that sees them given favorable decisions. There used to be when Fergie was there, but that has erased massively since he left. So Mark Clattenburg saying that, putting that stuff out there ahead of Liverpool and Manchester United.
Jurgen looks a little desperate. Mm-hmm. Looks a little scared. And he shouldn't be. I mean, he shouldn't be. Like, yeah, they've got injuries. Yeah, they haven't been at their best. But no, Liverpool should not be acting in that way, and Jurgen Klopp should not be acting in that way. It's a little disappointing, but it isn't his MO. So it's going to be a fun one this weekend. There's going to be a lot of conversation around it, and there will probably be some kind of a controversial situation that both sides can sit and point at and say, see,
mm-hmm. See,
they're biased there. See, they got a penalty. They get all the penalties. See, mm-hmm. They got a VAR decision over here. Liverpool, I mean, yes. It's you're going to see it both ways because it's what we do these days, isn't it? Like Liverpool will say, no, we don't ever get any VAR decisions. Then other people will say they get all the VAR decisions. We don't get any penalties. Well, you've got one less penalty than Manchester United this season. Like it's just, that's what all of this is. I want to see who actually plays the best in the match. I want to see who on the field, decides the match. I want to see what the decisions the two managers make. I'm looking forward to those things. The drama back and forth and silly accusations back and forth. I don't care. I'm over it at this point. I was holding this until it was official, and I don't know if Montreal has yet.
I think they're starting right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think their presentation is starting right now, but Brian Strauss has it. It had made the rounds yesterday. CF Montreal, Club de Foot Montreal, and the logo is out there. Of course, because we all hate everything, right? There were a lot of people who said they hated it immediately upon seeing it. I actually like it. I still think they should have kept Impact in it. I think they could have done the logo, done the rebrand. They could have been Club de Foot Montreal Impact and been CF Montreal Impact, kept that name, but changed the look, changed the feel, same logo, maybe change the font to fit Montreal Impact in there. Maybe just come up with a more interesting font anyway. It's kind of bland. But the logo, the blue and black is good. I like it. I think it looks really good.
And they changed their Twitter account officially to @ClubDeFootMTL. So the hashtag CFMTL is now up and running on Twitter as well. I like the Winter Olympics. It's almost like a Winter Olympics snowflake kind of looking part of the logo. That's what it reminded me of. So, and I'm with you. I don't think they needed to change away from Impact. If they had maybe integrated the new snowflake with Impact and done something like that, I'm like, okay. I mean, it's like, to me, it was a lot of effort when you shouldn't. I don't think you should have changed from Impact in the first place.
They needed a lot of effort on the logo because the Impact had a bunch of different logos and they didn't have a identifiable logo as a brand. They'd shift and they'd change it and they'd do different things. The logo's great. I love it. I think it's outside of it being a circle, like it's a unique look. It looks unique in this league. It looks good. Like you go to MLS, website and you throw that one in there at the top of the page and it's already up. It looks good. It it's interesting. It grabs your attention. I like it. The name, they should have just kept the Impact name and made it Club de Foot Montreal Impact. That's all I would have done.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could have gone with a happy medium with new logo staying with Impact and everything. But, okay, so now you're Club de Foot. You're now CFMTL. All right.
Well, that's a hashtag. You're not CFMTL.
Yes. You're Club de Foot. You're Club de Foot Montreal, and your hashtag is CFMTL.
Yes. Hashtags don't define everything. It's just a hashtag.
No. Hashtag. Unless you're Robert Downey Jr. and you try to sit there and associate everything with a hashtag in every sentence that you use.
That's funny. I did not even notice that. Piscine says it's not just a snowflake. There are M's embedded in it. I didn't notice that until you say that. Yeah, that's good. Now I totally see it. I didn't even think of that. I like it. Anyway, look, everybody hates everything, so I know there was a lot of negativity around it. I like the logo a whole lot more than I like the name. The name's fine, but I would have kept Impact in it just because I like the history. J-Dub with a good one on it. Club de Foot sounds like the hot new nightclub in Miami. Cardi B and DJ Snake are the co-owners.
Yeah.
I like it. Four-Card asks about hashtags, since hashtags are important. When will Twitter change the Atlanta hashtag to be hashtag ATLUTD instead of the Unite and Conquer hashtag to add the Atlanta United logo? They usually go through those a few years. Like, clubs will change them. Twitter will update stuff. I don't know if they'll change that to ATLUTD or change it to something else. I try to use both the Unite and Conquer one when I do my game day posts and Somos Atlanta, which gets the Atlanta United logo as well. I like that one too. So I try to use both. They change it to ATLUTD. I'm cool with that too.
I'm just finally realizing the M's inside the embedded snowflake.
I didn't know it either until Piscine mentioned it.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, okay, good. That's good three-dimensional thinking.
We do need the, and Piscine is 100% correct, we do need the hour-long walkthrough video where every bit of meaning is assigned to it. Like every little section means something. Bart chimed in with his thoughts. The colors are great. The font is boring. I want to like it because there's real courage in making your crest all about one thing, but a snowflake may not be a great thing to make it about. Wish it had fleur-de-lis. I thought it did. I thought they were on the sides. Did I miss that, or did I see an old version of it that had that in there? Did somebody put that in there? Bart said, I can't decide if I hate or love that the snowflake is a bunch of M's for Montreal. Like a snowflake feels a bit too simple, but is also busy. I don't think it's enough to anchor the whole thing. Is M and snowflake a good enough representation of the city and club? I like it. I don't go that deep, though. So
okay, the fleur-de-lis are on the outside at 3 and 9 o'clock.
They separate the font and the name. Could you make them more prominent? Yeah, you could have. You could have figured out something with that. I think they're going to do things with them being more prominent, judging from a training top or a T-shirt that got leaked on Adidas's website. I think they're going to add more elements to that. So they'll probably have a secondary mark that might use that more. So let's see where it goes. Ricky Ricardo says, Joey Saputo dropping bars. To make an impact, we need to retire the impact. Joey, come on, man. Come on, man. John Arnold already breaking news at The Striker Texas is the Twitter account. Luchi Gonzalez's contract option has been picked up. I didn't know he was potentially out of contract, but he will be in charge in 2021. Yeah. And that's good. He's done well. I wonder if they'll do a long-term deal because I think he's done well enough to earn that. So keep an eye on that. Anything else on the Twitters?
Austin FC now has an official beer. It is Heineken. They have just
Heineken's
signed on with their agreement.
Heineken's got a league deal, and they do deals with a lot of the teams too.
The official import beer of Austin FC.
Look, make that bank, because then you'll do an official craft beer too, and you'll probably come up with some other category too, and have a cider, and have a mead, and have a liquor, have a official tequila, and have an official vodka, and have an official rum, and do it.
All for it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it all.
Heineken is officially Verde.
Oh, Colonel with an update. Twitter's turned off the logo league-wide stuff. I don't know if they've done it league-wide. Have they, Colonel? He says Somos, Atlanta, and Unite and Conquer do not have the logo next to them automatically right now. Maybe they turn it on and off. I don't know. I'm not sure how Twitter arranges all that. Or maybe they're going to change them all. Who knows? We'll see. Other stuff, just in case you have not seen it, that we did not touch on today. Looks like Seattle will get the deal done for Joao Paulo. It was a $1.25 million purchase option in the original loan. Brazilian reports are saying that the transfer will be $1 million U.S. That thing's been drawn out for a while, but Botafogo will be $1 million richer, and Joao Paulo will be a Seattle Sounder for an extended period of time. Last night, Lanús defeated Vélez 3-0 in the second leg of the Sudamericana semifinal. They're going to the final. We'll find out who they play on Saturday. Defensa y Justicia and Coquimbo Unido will meet in Buenos Aires. And Defensa is a pretty big favorite in that. We'll talk more about it tomorrow as we get closer to it. Tomas Belmonte, Nicolas Orsini, and Alexander Bernabe scored the goals for Lanús. So they will be in a continental final in the Sudamericana. Mario Mandzukic has come out of mothballs, and he's linked with a move to Milan. 34-year-old Croat who's available on a free is being linked with a move to Milan. Don't they already have an old man striker?
Yeah.
They need another one?
Why not?
I guess. Jesse Lingard of Manchester United and England is being linked with a loan to Nice. An official approach is expected in the next week, according to Sky Sports. Eric Garcia, I feel like we talk about him every other day. Looks like a deal is done on a pre-contract for him to go to Barcelona next season. There is talk that he could go this month on a small transfer somewhere in the €6 million range. But Barcelona can't do anything until the presidential election, January 24th. So they're going to have to wait. At a minimum, he'll be joining Barca on a free at the end of his contract. Maybe he will be joining them in January. Diego Costa, who is also available on a free, has been linked by Sky Sports to Wolves and West Ham as possible landing spots. I haven't really heard much else about Diego Costa, so we'll see where he ends up. And another wild one, talking about old man strikers, 37-year-old Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, who is out of the picture at Ajax, who says he's going to retire at the end of the season. Bild and Kicker are reporting that Schalke are going to bring him back. Sure, why not? I mean, if he's not playing and this is going to be it for him, then sure, Schalke could use him.
Exactly. Yeah, Schalke needs all the help they can get.
Go for it. Bild is also reporting that Erling Haaland is not looking to leave Borussia Dortmund, despite rumors at the moment about every club in the world. Happy at Dortmund, wants to help Dortmund win titles. However, he does have a release clause, but Bild is saying it is not active before 2022. So keep an eye on that one. You've got Copa Italia today. Sassuolo hosting Spezia. Winner plays Juve in the quarterfinals. Atalanta hosts Cagliari. Winner will play either Lazio or Parma. Those are on ESPN+. The Spanish Super Cup, Barcelona got to the final after penalties against Real Sociedad without Lionel Messi. He could play in the final this weekend. We'll see who they play today. Real Madrid is facing Athletic Bilbao in the Spanish Super Cup semifinal. I think it's the only Super Cup that actually has a semifinal because Spain, go for it, whatever. Money, cash. It would have been in Saudi Arabia. It's not. It's being played in southern Spain. Bilbao is seeking its second Super Cup title after winning it in 2015. Real Madrid's won the thing 11 times. That match is today. That is on ESPN Plus as well. They have the rights to the Spanish Super Cup. Arsenal is playing Crystal Palace today. Is that on Peacock or is that on NBCSN?
Oh, let's see really quickly.
I do not remember. Mikel Arteta has been relieving the pressure that he was under earlier. Palace is 1 point behind Arsenal, and they've been kind of all over the map. Arsenal's been really good.
NBCSN.
It's on SN. What time?
Yeah. 3 o'clock.
NBCSN, 3 o'clock. Fulham. Scott Parker had a lot of things to say before the game. Had a lot of things to say about how, I can't remember what words he used, but they were very harsh, about how Fulham was being pushed into this game against Tottenham. They got a draw.
Mm-hmm.
They did pretty well. Parker said, I owe no one an apology. This football club owes no one an apology. Just say maybe you overreacted a little bit. That's all. You handled it. You got a great result. You didn't have to freak out so much. It's okay. It's a good result for them. Tottenham, Jose Mourinho says his team needs to kill games off. They do. This has been an ongoing issue. You get a lead, you don't kill the game off, you give up a late goal, you lose points. It's got to change. And, Mourinho's right to say it. He keeps saying it, so I don't think he is trying to sit on 1-goal leads. It's got to get better because they're throwing too many points away. If they're going to be a title contender and they're in that mix, you can't throw points away like this. You can't throw points away to Fulham. Can't do it. For Alex Bassine's sake, we're not going to talk about how bad Newcastle is and was, and a piece over at, I believe it was Sky Sports, who really, really went in on Steve Bruce. Yes. Really, really went in on Steve Bruce and how bad they are. We won't talk about how Alan Shearer wrote a piece at The Athletic talking about how bad things are. He didn't blame Steve Bruce as much because they're friends, and I understand that. He put all of the blame on Mike Ashley. I think Steve Bruce has to be blamed for a lot of this.
No question.
It's very bad. It's very, very bad. You can go find that piece. Again, for Alex Bassine's sake, we're not going to completely and utterly shred Newcastle United today. Give it time. We'll do it again here soon. Mentioned Aston Villa's game on the weekend has been postponed. Talked about Derby's situation. French TV broadcast things. Yeah, 2 false 10s, Alex. 2 false 10s. That's what Steve Bruce is going to do. 2 false 10s. Because that makes total sense. All the great managers do 2 false 10s. French broadcast rights are absolutely in disarray because Canal Plus is now giving its rights back because they were expected to pick up the rights that MediaPro had, and now they're like, no, you can have what we already have back, and we want it to be all at a cut rate because we're paying too much anyway, and it's just... French football's in a bad, bad spot. Looking at losses in the $1 billion range. PSG's looking at losses of about $360 million. They've got the money to absorb that, even though they're not going to be happy about it. Marseille's looking at losses of about $200 million. It's really bad. Mauricio Pochettino won his first trophy of his managerial career. It was the Trophée des Champions in Lens. They beat Marseille. It's like the Community Shield. It's like the Super Cup. The league and cup winners play. They pushed it back. Got the win after goals from Mauro Icardi and Neymar. Payet got a late consolation for Marseille, 2-1 win for PSG, and Pochettino finally gets that trophy.
Really quick out of Montreal, the top supporters club does not endorse the new team name.
Oh, boy.
2 words in Latin, annus horribilis. Bad year.
Bad year?
Annus.
Why is
I thought annus was.
Why is it a bad year? I thought you took Latin.
I did.
But you're not sure.
Well, horribilis, it's a year of... I'm trying to remember my tense. A year of disaster or misfortune, annus horribilis. Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't like it.
I like the logo. I don't like the name. I'm not a fan. But again, we all hate everything. That's what we do. That's our official stance to everything these days.
Rabble.
Any kind of news, anything that gets said, we hate it. Then usually people come around or they realize they didn't hate it as much or whatever. So we'll see. They probably should have been in conversations with their supporters group. I don't know if they were, and maybe they just didn't like where the conversations went. I have no idea. But no, it's not a good look. You should have tried to mitigate that. But I don't think you needed to change the name anyway. You still could have done the brand with keeping the name or adjusting the name or tweaking the name. You could have kept Impact in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it stands.
Right there with you.
It's where it stands. Anything else?
No, I mean, there are a bunch of other leagues that have like one match tonight. There's some in Central and South America that are happening, but...
we can only do so much, John.
Yes, and Defensa has gone up to a minus 105 at 345 against Aldosivi. Aldosivi is a plus 290. Arsenal's a big favorite at minus 160.
What? Defensa and Aldosivi?
Yeah, that's what it says.
What are you talking about?
Copa Diego Maradona, Defensa Justicia, and Aldosivi.
Oh, are they playing that? Yeah, that's right, because that got pushed back, because they have to play it because Defensa could win by like 7 and get into the Complementación final, which they won't, because Defensa is going to be a lot more worried about the second leg of the Copa Sudamericana semifinal, which comes up on the 16th, which is Saturday. Yeah. So it will probably be every kid they can find and throw in a Defensa shirt tonight playing Aldosivi.
Yep. Copa Italia matches are one after the other. Crystal Palace is a plus 525 going up against Arsenal, who's a minus 167, and your draw is a plus 300.
All right. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back in the morning. For those of you who are on the Discord, I'm sure there will be conversation about Montreal's logo. I'm sure there will be conversation about mocked-up kits, because that always gets people going. Logos and mocked-up kits gets the wildest conversation going and anything in soccer-related stuff. News as it comes, we'll keep you posted on anything with Moises Caicedo, any other rumors that are out there, any other things that get said about MLS and MLSPA, and hopefully it's not much being said, because hopefully they're actually talking like adults. Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Y'all stay safe, and we'll be back in the morning. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.